Morning and welcome to St. Paul's United Church of Christ this morning. Derek, my mom was an organist, and the mom in me was just like delighting in how you play the organ and get the fullness of the sound out of it this morning. Thank you so very much for being here. I know it's a bit of a run to come from a worship service and then to slip into the role of organist, and we're glad that actually Derek and I have a relationship where we do this for each other, although I never play the organ for them. They've never asked me. My mom is now rolling over in her grave. I am so glad you're here this morning. You are so welcome to be here. We are a church that lives by faith, is known by love, and is a voice of hope to the world. And I hope that that voice is heard here this morning and something that you can carry with you for the rest of the week. We are still keeping a list of oldie moldy hymns. If you'd like to add one to the list, I'm trying to fit them in as much as I can in the next couple months until Thanksgiving, since we've been celebrating our 275th anniversary. The intergenerational class was really exciting this morning, lots of enthusiasm. Way too much to do in the amount of time we had to do it, so we all have things to take home and play with and glue together. Thanks, Rod, for putting that together. Please don't miss it. It's a really good time. So next week at the same time, 9:30 here in the sanctuary, and then on October 1st here in the sanctuary, same thing. There is a fun fest that Shenko Care puts out. I don't think they've had it for a couple of years because of the pandemic, but we got notice early last week that it was happening again. We are offered a booth if we'd like to do that, but in order to do so, I would need to have some volunteers. So if anybody's interested in helping with that, it's on September 30th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's at the middle school here in Woodstock. If you're interested, please call Becky and let her know, or call me and let me know. I have one announcement that I want to make. Abby is now a grandmother for the two times in 2 weeks. This baby is 4.5 weeks early. The baby, Dixie, who came a couple weeks ago, was 5 weeks early. So they're on a roll, and I think she needs to be ready, to just hop in the car and go whenever. Anyhow, her daughter, Francie, and husband, Dan Martonic, and their two little sons have a new brother, Crew McCabe Martonic. He's doing well, he's in the NICU, and so's Mom. Everything seems to be going well. Keep Abby in mind. She said that she was allowed to get a driving cast on Friday. And when she got the call about the baby's birth, it was the first place she drove. She put the driving cast on, hit the road. I can't imagine that after having not driving for a while, and got to the hospital and was able to greet the baby. So anyhow, hold them all in your prayers and with thanksgiving to God. Are there any other announcements that need to be made this morning? Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, really briefly, Stewardship of Missions is going to be sponsoring a Holy Joe's Cafe, not related to me at all. It's going to be supporting the Holy Joe's Cafe ministry, which works with our active servicemen and women across the world, and it's coordinated by UCC chaplains on a worldwide basis, and we're going to have a brunch over here after Rod's class on October 1. Starts roughly, about 10:30, Melissa, until the beginning of service. Lots of good food, and we're going to be featuring a local coffee, Aperture, which is really good, and I think y'all will enjoy it. Free will offering will be accepted.
Thanks very much, Joe. Now I ask that you would stand as you are able for our call to worship, which is in the bulletin. We gather together in the name of our God,
the maker of heaven and earth,
who calls us away from the customs and attitudes of the world around us,
and invites us instead to a transforming relationship with Him and with one another.
Let's worship God together. Please remain standing for our opening hymn, number 48, Immortal, Invisible, God Only Wise. that so that our lives may be transformed by the love of God. Please join me in the prayer of confession. Merciful God, we confess how easy it is for us to begin to adopt the attitudes and actions of the world around us, to let our lives be shaped by contemporary culture rather than by your call. We confess how often we think of our own interests first, more concerned with our own status and well-being than with the well-being of others. We confess that we have not always treated one another as valued members of your body, the church, that we have allowed intolerance and resentment to tear us apart. We confess that we do not always acknowledge you as Lord, trusting in our own abilities and following our own goals, rather than submitting ourselves to your will and your call. Through the power of your Holy Spirit, transform us, change us from the inside out, so that our words and our lives bring honor and glory to you, our Savior and Lord. Amen. Hear these words from the Apostle Paul. Anyone who is in Christ is a new creation. The old life has gone, a new life has begun. Enjoy your new life this morning. Let's see if the song I sing helps. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Oh. Oh no, what's that? Oh no. Oh no, are you cracking up?
Yeah.
What's that come from?
A PBS Kids show I want to forget about.
Oh, you want to forget about Daniel Tiger?
A little bit.
Oh my gosh, oh, I'm so sorry I brought Daniel Tiger here because I thought Daniel Tiger could be a good neighbor to any children that were here today, but apparently not a good neighbor to you. I'm so sorry. Oh, what does it mean to be a good neighbor?
Just be kind to the others around you.
Yeah, be kind to others around you. Yeah, and like who's all involved in Huntington School? Who's all around you? All kinds of people.
Lots and lots and lots and lots of people.
Yeah, are all of them your friends?
No, not all of them.
Okay, thank you for being honest. And are you, as a good neighbor, are you only kind to the people who are kind to you? Or are you kind to everybody?
Everybody.
That's the right answer. Good job. High five. So our story today is it's a text about somebody welcoming strangers. That's part of it. We remember from last week, or if you were in the class this morning, that the story of Moses when he was exiled because he had murdered an Egyptian, named his first son in exile Gershom, because he said, I am a stranger in a strange land. We're thankful that somebody welcomed him, and we're going to hear about welcoming others throughout our service today. So thank you very much for letting Daniel Tiger come here. I'd let you have him home, but I don't think he wants to go with you. You're like beyond that. Okay, let's pray. Dear God, thanks so much for Lucas willing to come up here, and thank you so much that he is growing so much that Daniel Tagger is kind of a far memory from young childhood. Amen.
Not only are we happy to have Derek here, but we also have Julie, who's going to share her lovely oldies.
Today's scripture reading is from Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verses 9 through 21. Let love be genuine. Hate what is evil. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with mutual affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal. Be ardent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope. Be patient in affliction. Persevere in prayer. Contribute to the needs of the saints. Pursue hospitality to strangers. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be arrogant, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but take thought for what is noble in the sight of all. If it is possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave room for the wrath of God, for it is written, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord." Instead, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. For by doing this you will heap burning coals on their heads. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
I hope some of those words hit you. The one that I heard this morning as Rod was reading was the one about don't pretend to be wiser than you are. What a wonderful thing to be reminded as one comes to preach to a group of people. I'm reminded that I am not as wise as I might think I am, and it's with all of us together that we discern what is right and good and true. That's part of being a congregation. Well, the real reason that Rod and I are United Church of Christ members can be stated in 2 words: Bob Johnson. When Rod and I first arrived in Maui, we were truly strangers in a strange land. The first morning I woke up, there was a cockroach that looked like the size of a B-52 on the ceiling right above my bed. I grew up in a family where fear of bugs is like the right thing for women to do. I pulled the covers up over my head. Rod had already gone to work, bless his soul. And I said an unredeemed word, and then I decided I'm either going to embrace this or I'm going to be miserable. We only had one-way ticket to Hawaii, so I didn't want to be miserable. I have since come to embrace killing insects. We started visiting churches because we were beyond the reach of the denomination that we'd been a part of for the better part of our lives. We visited a Methodist church on one Sunday morning, and it was the Sunday of the month that their sister Tongan congregation met together with them. It was something to hear these Tongan men singing a choir song in their grass skirts. We visited a Nazarene church that met in the basement of the local recreation center. We visited an Episcopal church that had the best view I've ever seen. We visited a Union church that had been the home church for the plantation owners back in the 1800s in Maui, and they split from the congregational churches over the issue of slavery. It reached that far, even to Hawaii, friends. And then one day, one Sunday, we visited Po'okela United Church of Christ. The next morning, Bob Johnson called our home and invited me to join him at their weekly Bible study luncheon that met in his home, which was just 2 blocks away from where we lived. People were friendly in every church that we visited, but only one person reached out. And the relationships formed from that one invitation sealed the deal for Rod and I. Hospitality to strangers works. I wish I had the details about the people who were the first members of this church back in the 1700s. How did they get to know each other? Was it as they were traveling south in wagons to get here? Had they known each other in Germany? How did they become not just the church, but a community? How did they care for each other? How did they show hospitality and love to non-German speaking people, like the English and the Scots and the Africans, and to their Native American neighbors as well? I'd love to know, but we don't know. What we do know is that they've had family devotions. They met together regularly for worship. They had communion when an ordained minister was present. And those practices, regular devotions like prayer and Bible reading every day and not just one day when the church is open, gathering for worship when able, and the breaking and sharing of the cup and bread were the things that sustained that early community. We know from history that things weren't always easy. Living in relationship with other human beings seldom is. Anybody who's married or has been married understands it's not always rosy on your bed. We know from history that George Rye and friends were excommunicated in 1841 for their pro-abolition stance. Some of those details include George effigy being burned in Woodstock Square. And what confounds me, and I'm so curious about, is that years later, George and others were recommunicated. They were listed back on the church rolls. They were a part of the congregation. How in the world did that all play out? I don't believe such things happen except through the grace of God working within us. The lead into our text today, Romans 12, 1 to 9, and then verse 1 to 2, and then verse 9, read this way. So then, my friends, because of God's great mercy to us, I appeal to you. Offer yourselves as a living sacrifice to God, dedicated to his service and pleasing to him. This is the true worship that you should offer. Do not conform yourselves to the standards of this world, but let God transform you inwardly by complete change of your mind. Then you will be able to know the will of God, what is good and pleasing to God and perfect. Let love be genuine. The word genuine there in the Greek text is the opposite of hypocrite. Be anti-hypocritical. Be genuine, exactly who you are, not with a mask where the word hypocrite comes from, which is what was worn in plays, so that you played a part who you really weren't. Paul knew what he was talking about. Paul had been a Pharisee of Pharisees. He was a leader of the church in Jerusalem, and he headed to Damascus to arrest those who were following the way of Jesus. And on his way, he was knocked off his horse, he was blinded by a bolt of light, and the voice of Jesus saying, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Saul, the persecutor of Christians, became Paul, the apostle to the nations, because a fearful but obedient follower of Jesus in Damascus was told by God to go and tend to Saul and to his soul. That man went, an amazing act of hospitality. For hospitality isn't just about inviting people in, but it's about allowing yourselves to be invited in by others. He befriended Saul as a brother in Christ. And Paul's ministry became one of preaching the good news of Jesus to people of all religious and ethnic persuasions. He still had issues, for sure. He was rejected by his fellow Jews for following Jesus. He had a falling out with one of his helpers that was so serious that he sent the man on his way and didn't become reconciled with him until years later. He was rejected by the early church for embracing Gentiles. I think George Rye and St. Paul probably could relate to each other. Maybe they are right now in heaven. Paul wrote the letter to the Romans in a winter of 56 to 57 in the Christian era while he was in Corinth. And his words were a window on what life in Christ looked like then and should look like now in community. This text, which Rod read, contains 30 imperatives or 30 admonitions about how to believe, depending on the English translation that you use. And by the way, none of them are singular verbs. They are all plural, meaning all y'all do these things. Paul urged the church in Rome, which was a crazy combination of personalities, ethnicities, religious backgrounds, and social status, and he led them and urged them with the imperative to love all people. All of the admonitions in Romans 12, 9 through 21 are aimed at helping us, followers of Jesus, know how to extend love in all circumstances. If you're brave enough to do so, read it every day this week and see what particular thing jumps out at you. Love those in the local community of faith, whom Paul often referred to as saints. Would you believe that he actually was talking to people like you and me? Saints. And frankly, sometimes those closest to us are often the hardest to get along with. I remember back when Rod and I would travel to Ohio for Thanksgiving dinners, and my brother-in-law's family as well as our family would be there. There were some very difficult holiday conversations with words and ideas shared by people who differed greatly about one thing or another. Politics comes to mind. The same is true for the church. I will never forget, I have it clearly in my mind, the first time I inadvertently stepped on a landmine in this congregation during a consistory meeting. Unresolved pain and trauma are the breeding ground for future heartache and pain for ourselves and for others. Love those in the local community of faith. Even when someone steps on your landmine, or even when you say something inadvertent and the room grows silent. Love those further afield. Examples of that are what we have done as a congregation. I remember when I first arrived here, there were terrible wildfires, or had been, on the West Coast, and our church contributed to what I believe was called the campfire. I know that some of you have made donations to help the churches and the people in Mali recovering from the Lahaina wildfires. And I wonder if in the future days we might actually have invitations and opportunities to help the people in Libya. 10,000 or more people have died from